Right now, the global mental health and addiction care market is valued at over 370 billion euros. But within that massive system, waiting lists are stretching out for months, and clinicians are facing severe burnout. Part of the bottleneck comes down to how data is collected. In traditional care, the primary source of information is the patient's own memory. Therapists have to rely on retrospective reporting, asking someone to accurately recall how they felt days or weeks after an event occurred. Then there's the physical limitation of the treatment itself. A therapy session typically happens in a safe, quiet room. The patient and the clinician sit opposite each other, completely removed from the chaotic, real-world environments that actually trigger anxiety or cravings. Because those triggers aren't present in the room, patients have to intellectually imagine their high-risk situations. They talk through past failures or hypotheticals, rather than confronting the stress in the moment. This creates a disconnect in the recovery process. A patient might have all the right tools on paper, but they are only truly safe as long as they stay inside the clinic's walls. In behavioral health, this disconnect is known as the knowing-doing gap. It's the physical and psychological space between having clinical insight and actually applying that insight in the real world. When sitting across from a therapist, a patient can often perfectly articulate their emotional patterns. They understand their triggers and know exactly what coping mechanisms they are supposed to use. But knowing what to do is very different from doing it under pressure. When that same person walks into a crowded social gathering, a shop, or a stressful argument, acute stress takes over, and the intellectual insight fails. This inability to translate therapy into real-time action is one of the primary drivers behind high dropout and relapse rates, especially in addiction care. If we want to reduce those rates, we can't just talk to patients about their triggers. They need a way to actively practice resisting them. This is the problem MAUNi-Tech is solving. They are building a new category of clinical infrastructure designed to turn therapy from a conversation into an immersive, active experience. Using virtual reality, the platform safely transports patients out of the clinician's office and places them directly into highly controlled, personalized, high-risk environments. Instead of just imagining what a trigger feels like, the patient confronts it. They experience cravings and are challenged to practice their coping skills in real time while under simulated duress. These environments are populated by dynamic, AI-driven characters. Because the AI is unscripted, it can generate realistic, unpredictable social stress for the patient to navigate, just like a real interaction. By actively working through these scenarios, patients build actual muscle memory for emotional regulation. They are training their behavioral responses rather than just theorizing about them. At the center of this platform is a feature called the Epicurean Garden. This is a living digital space designed to visually represent the patient's internal psychological state. As the patient moves through their therapy sessions and VR exercises, the system captures streams of real-time behavioral data. The garden dynamically evolves in shape, color, and environment based on those inputs, acting as a direct reflection of the patient's progress. This data pipeline provides visibility where therapists were previously blind. Historically, clinicians had no objective way to track behavioral responses once a patient left the office, but MAUNi-Tech connects the VR experience to a real-time clinician dashboard. Therapists can monitor the exact behavioral patterns and emotional telemetry generated during the simulation. This eliminates the reliance on flawed human memory. For the first time, therapists have objective, real-time proof of a patient's psychological change as it is actively happening. When patients gain experiential mastery over their triggers before facing them in the real world, the clinical outcomes improve. Clinics report strength in motivation, higher retention, and a decrease in relapse rates. But beyond individual patient outcomes, this model addresses the systemic capacity crisis. Providers can deliver intensive, engaging therapy to more people without having to expand their physical facilities. This document outlines their business model, showing a highly scalable B2B SaaS structure. Because the core product is software infrastructure, clinics simply subscribe to the platform and add more patient seats as they grow, with almost zero marginal cost for the provider. This timeline shows their go-to-market strategy. Moving from active clinical pilots in Europe and the US, they are structured to transition rapidly into full commercialization and then global expansion. integrating with existing reimbursement pathways. By embedding this infrastructure into the existing treatment ecosystem, MAUNi-Tech shifts the modality of care from a theoretical conversation into an immersive, scalable, and measurable experience.